Hey guys, Bushcraft412 here. Today I want to talk about prepping for morale. I've been a little critical of the whole prepping thing lately, and I think there's kind of good reasons. I've kind of gotten bored with the 3 Bs, the beans, bullets, and rice, and they're a big part of prepping, but I've just, how long can you stockpile food and bullets and all that before you just kind of get tired of it and want to start focusing on other things? And I've been thinking a lot lately about morale. What good is life when you're living off beans and rice and working hard every day, 10, 12 hours a day just to survive? You need something to help keep morale up. And today's one of those days I went to the liquor store and picked up a few extra bottles. Of course, one for tomorrow, but then I picked up a couple extras just to kind of hide in with the preps because I think they're good morale boosters. Of course, liquor stays good almost forever. I don't think whiskey goes bad, at least as far as I know. If any experts out there know, chime in. I know wine goes bad after a while, but I don't think whiskey does. So I got these couple bottles here of whiskey to add in with the preps, and I think they're going to be great morale boosters. Especially you've had a traumatic couple of months. You've lost family members. You've lost loved ones. You don't have a job. You don't have money. You're living off your supplies. How nice is it that you have those supplies, but on top of those supplies, if you have that bottle of booze, if you have a couple of books set aside or board games that you can play with your family at night by candlelight, I really think prepping for your morale is really, really important. Almost as important as the beans and the bullets and the Band-Aids. And because, if you don't have that will to live, you're not going to make it in a shit hits the fan scenario. Granted, some of us will do better than others. I'm sure some guys are going to flourish in the apocalypse. Some of the preppers out there are just gung-ho, ready to go. And I'm sure they'll do great. But other people, and probably a majority of the population, will not do great. And they're going to need that morale booster to keep them going and keep their spirits high. And I think it's time to look at your own life. And booze isn't for everyone. Not everyone drinks, and not everybody smokes and all that, and not everyone reads books or likes certain things. But I really think take a look at what makes you happy in life and incorporate that into your preps. And booze is not the one thing that makes me happy in life, but I was just thinking about how nice it would be, to have those, after a long day of working and planting and setting up your gardens and hunting and doing all those things, how nice it would be to come home and have, a nice glass of Jameson waiting for you. Or you come back from a couple-day hunting trip trying to provide for your family, and you got a nice, single malt scotch to come home to. It's those little things that keep you going, and it may not be that. Maybe it's books, maybe it's a hobby you have, maybe it's something, but I think, incorporating those preps in is really a big deal, and it'll help keep you happy, because the happier you are, the more you're going to want to live. The more you're going to want to live, the harder you're going to work to survive, and it's just good to constantly keep morale up. And in an environment where everything may be horrible in your life, it may be more difficult than what we think. We tend to think as preppers, if I got my food, I got my water, I got my bullets, I got heat, warmth, a way to, all that. We think about the basics to survive. We don't think about what we need to thrive. And now I'm kind of taking a detour in my prepping and trying to spend that little bit of extra money here and there to make it so that I'll be happy. If God forbid, shit ever hits the fan, that I can live a happy life, because I'm going to have things those little comforts that are going to make me feel better about life. And I'm going to kind of, spend a little more money and a little more focus on that, because I really kind of feel like at this point, I have a ton of food, I have a ton of water, I've got a ton of bullets and a ton of guns. I really need to start looking at those comfort things and make sure that I can, in the end, you want to be able to make sure you can live whatever your lifestyle ends up being after shit hits the fan, that you can live that lifestyle for a long time. And I think having some of these things, a couple bottles of booze like that would last me months. So if I bought 10 bottles of booze, that'd probably last me almost a lifetime. So just think about those kind of things, and remember, it's not about how much you store. It's about that quality of life that you're going to have afterwards, and having a life that's worth living and worth fighting for. And worth fighting to keep your family safe. And really important, really big. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope this, kind of opened your eyes a little bit that, it's not just about the beans and the bullets. Yes, they make for good videos on YouTube, but they don't make families happy.